Richard asked me to come and talk to you guys a little bit about messaging. That is what I am passionate about. I feel like as Republicans, I don't know if I'm crazy, but we have not always been the best at messaging, about getting out in front and putting our words out there. We tend to be on the defense most of the time, saying things like, no, we're not, or no, I'm not, or whatever. You know, goes back to Richard Nixon. What did he say? I'm not a crook, right? That's quintessential Republican messaging at its worst. Because when you say what you're not, you're automatically telling people you're implying what you are. So this is what I do. As vice chairman, I've done it as SREC, and before that I travel around the state and I work with groups, candidates, and clubs to help them message better. We all know what we believe. That's not the problem, right? You're sitting here because you know what you believe. But can you articulate it? And can you articulate it in 20 seconds? 20 seconds, maybe 30. Why do I say that? Because when somebody says, Greg Abbott, who's that? You know, you're wearing a Greg Abbott t-shirt. Who is that? They don't really want to know why you support, all the reasons you support Governor Abbott. They want to know who he is. Or you say, you know, life, or tell me about this, or tell me about that. Or, in the election, did any, especially you ladies, did anybody here, I think it'd be great to have a woman governor. I'm going to vote for Wendy Davis because it'd be great to have a woman governor. Do you answer that? Can you answer that in 30 seconds? Could you? Yes? No? Maybe? Oh, you guys need coffee. Come on. Look, I go out and I was excited about coming here today because I'll go out and I'll talk to, you know, some Republican women's groups and other groups. And you know, the median age of our party is
90.
So I was excited to come here today because I'm like, yes, it will be energetic. You're killing me. You're letting me down. All right.
I don't think it's gonna work.
It's not going to work?
Oh, maybe there it is.
All right, may I just
Yay!
It's all right, if it doesn't work, I'll just look at the notes. So good. So anyway, this is what I do when I talk to people. So for example, we need to have what we call the difficult conversation. As Republicans, what is the other thing that we love to do?
Argue?
We preach to the, no, arguing is great, man. Debate. Debate is a good thing. Debate is healthy. We're the capitalists. Competition improves everything. So debate is good. What's not good is when we preach to the choir. And the choir is comfortable. And the choir is where we like to be because it's sycophantic, right? We hear what we want to hear. And that's great. It's like we go to church to be built up in our community. But then at some point you have to do what? You have to leave. You have to walk out the doors. Right? The Great Commission in the Christian faith is to what? Go out into the world and make disciples in all the world. So you actually have to go out. That's the important part of that. Go out to make disciples. But it's the same thing if you think about our conservative principles. And I love to talk in terms of principles. When we miss the boat when we get into the whole red and blue thing, even the Republican and Democrat. I mean, that means something to us. But for people who don't like politics, and can you believe that there are people out there who don't like politics? You know, it's not for everybody like it is for us. And they think that they're all the same. Politicians, Republicans, Democrats are all the same, right? So how do you confront that? You talk in terms of principles because our principles aren't the same. Even when our politicians let us down. Because they will. Because they're people, right? Don't ever put your faith in people. Put your faith in your principles because those are unchanging. And that's how you change hearts and lives, when you talk to people about principles. So leave the politics out of it. And we do have to get in, and we do have to roll up our sleeves and get our hands dirty, because why? I mean, the election's not till next year, right? Maybe a year to sit around. What's at stake in 2016? I'm going to ask you guys some questions.
Everything.
The White House, beyond the White House.
Leadership of this country. Direction.
What does the White House affect directly that's not on the ballot? But that
Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court. Now, think for a minute, if you will, the lovely faces of our current Supreme Court. And the age, I think the median age of the Supreme Court is actually older than the median age of the Republican Party. You do the math. But what does that mean? What does that mean? It means the next president is going to have how many? 1, 2, I don't know. 2 chances to put somebody on the Supreme Court. What could that do to the balance of power in this country, especially as we move more towards judicial activism, which to me is the most frightening thing of all the frightening things going on in our country right now. Judicial activism, legislation by the bench is a very frightening thing, and we need to stand up against it. So we talk about 2016 like people understand these things are at stake. And politicians, if you're a candidate, you go out there and what do you say in your fundraising letter? What do you say? This election is the most important election that's ever been. You know what? I kind of think that's true. Do you not? Tell me it's not. I mean, in 2010, was that not the most important election ever to that point? Absolutely. In 2012, in 2014, and here we are in 2016, and we're saying the same thing. We have to make people understand that. We have to tell them why, and that's because it's about our principles. And so, yeah, no, I'll take this. There's just a couple phrases that I like to teach people when I go out, and this is like a micro class, and I'd love to come back and work with you guys more at some point. This up here.
We have chapters across the state.
Wonderful.
Feel free to reach out.
Give me a holler, and I'll do it. So the most important thing we can do, we talk about as a group, we block walk, we phone bank, or we write checks. Hopefully you guys aren't hit up for money that much, but we do all these things as Republicans, but what we fail to do is actually speak to people. Actually speak to people, and that is the number one thing that we can do. And I get in trouble for saying that because we can block walk and phone bank. Yeah, but really it's about connections, because you think of each one of you, the people you represent, in your social media network, in your actual real life friends network of people you actually talk to. Do you have people come to you at election and say, hey, you follow politics, who should I vote for? That's power. And you get that way by being somebody of a level-headed and common sense and respectful in your dialogue, but take the time to speak to people about the principles, because that's what's going to get us where we need to go. If you think about it, I'm on the older end of your spectrum, I will admit, but I still fit. And I grew up under Reagan, right? He was the president that I learned from, and that I saw what this country could be. Think about the kids today. Think about the 12-year-olds and the 13-year-olds and the 16-year-olds today. Who have they been watching? Who have they grown up under? Is that the same country? Is that the rising tides that we learned about are going to bring up all the ships? Absolutely not. And so we have to show them. We talk about Reagan, and we've got 25, 30, 35, however many Republicans are going to run for president. I'm not one of them, by the way. I'm going to make that clear. In case you're wondering, this is not what this announcement's about. So, but we in all this thing, and we keep saying we're looking for Ronald Reagan. Wow, I wish there was Reagan. But you know, he's not coming back. Ronald Reagan is not on the ballot. He's not going to be. And the people today, the young people, even younger than us, they don't even know who he is. And that is up to us to bring back that vision of America. And how did he do it? He didn't divide people. That wasn't how he won 49 states. He made people believe in something. And as Republicans, as conservatives, that's what we have to do too. We reach to people on common values. You do have things in common with everybody. Yes? I have to stretch on some of them, like I think about Nancy Pelosi and be like, you're a female too. We've got that going for us. So there are times that it is hard to find that, but if you can start from that point in a conversation, of course, don't get angry. We are the party of logic. We are the party of logic and not emotion. And that doesn't mean that we don't feel or have emotion, these cold-hearted Republicans, but we don't legislate based on emotion. We don't say things like there ought to be a law, right? Sherman Parker was saying earlier that it's supposed to be hard for a bill to become a law. And that has to be the line that we take as Republicans. But again, we have to explain that in terms of principles. It's about liberty. It's about liberty. There's a quote by Exupéry from, I believe it's from The Little Prince, that French poet, and he said, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but he said, if you want to build a ship, you don't go tell people to get wood and materials and tell them how to do it. You teach people to long for the immensity of the sea. Teach people to long for the sea, and they'll build their own boat. And they'll help somebody else build a boat. And they'll help somebody else build a boat. And that's how we turn this around, right? Teach people to long for liberty they may not have experienced yet under the president that we have now. It's up to us to bring them that message. You are not able to convert every person into a conservative. That is not our mission. Although we could. But you know the 30-40-30 principle, right? 30% of people are always in our base, and 30%, bless their heart, are over here. Well, okay, this way for y'all. They're over here. Okay, I wouldn't advocate trying to change hearts and minds at Occupy Wall Street. As my mother would say, you pray for them, and you let it go. But we're looking for those 40% in the middle that don't enjoy politics. And it's up to us to be an ambassador and to complicate and confuse the liberal message. How do you do that? By stating the truth. over and over. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Don't walk away from difficult conversations. You know, as Southern females, we're taught to not talk about what? Well, I guess as polite people, I'm supposed to talk about what? And football, on occasion, depending on what crowd you're with, right? But we need to talk about principle, we can talk about faith, and we can talk about those things that are important. Don't walk away from those conversations. Do it respectfully and politely, but don't walk away. Good communication is centered around values. What's important to him may not be important to you, but you do have things in common, and that's what we have to make people feel. As Republicans, we must not preach to the choir. We have to be about definition. We have to define ourselves. Are you tired of hearing? I have this great slide here. Let me pull it up. I love to ask people these questions when people say, Republicans, y'all are just against things. Why would you vote Republican? Answer. Somebody, throw it out. Aren't you just against things?
We're for limiting government, and unfortunately, the conversation is framed as we're against the expansion of government. Because we are,
But why?
but we're advocating.
For liberty.
for-
What's the more powerful message, what you're for, what you're against? I read your legislative priorities, and that's a perfect example. Civil liberties, right? That's exactly what you said. You're not anti-government. You're for the power being in the hands of the people. What about border security? What does that come across? Well, Republicans are anti-immigrant. No. We're for a secure border and a secure and a strong nation and opportunity for everybody that is a citizen here, right? What are we for? Life is a great issue. We're not against a woman, right? Man, you know, the whole war on women, we're against women. Really? I wouldn't be spending every day of my life doing this as a volunteer, mind you, if that were true. What are we for? We're for life, not just for life, but for people and the opportunity of all lives to make a difference. All lives matter, right? What are we for? So move the conversation to the positive, and that takes that away. What about when somebody says they're all the same? Republicans, Democrats are all the same. Now, I know there may be days.
Yeah.
There may be days. Don't. Remember, we're not talking about specific politics or politicians. Tell to me about principle. So teach them it's not just about Republican, Democrat. Teach them it's not just red and blue. Teach them about conservatism and liberalism. Teach them about socialism and the evil, the absolute evil that lies in socialism, right? That's what we're for. Teach people that. They just don't understand it. If we just talk about words, and I'm gonna discuss the platform in a minute, but all the platform is a bunch of words. It is up to us to go out and to live it and to do it and to make it mean for something. All right. I'm gonna read you a quote. Oh, it happens to be from the Spurs locker room. I'm just gonna rub it in a little bit more. I mean, there's a great quote, and I can tweet it out if you guys want to, but in the Spurs locker room, not that I've been, but they say that there is a quote from this author, and it's in the language of every Spurs player on the team. And it says, "When nothing seems to help, I go and look at a stone cutter, hammering away at his rock, perhaps 100 times, without as much as a crack showing in it. Yet at the 101st blow, it will split in two. And I know it was not that blow that did it, but all the blows that went before. All the blows that went before. You will not change that mind on the first time, most likely. People believe what they believe for a reason, right? Don't dismiss them. You don't know by what path somebody came to this chair, right? Maybe the person next to you used to be a liberal until last week. So welcome them in, right? Don't be afraid to tell people your story, but you need to accept people for what they are and understand when they get angry about something, it's because they're passionate about it. It means something. People get angry about Republicans cutting school funding. How could you? What about the children, right? How could you? I am being serious. Listen, when you become a soccer mom, this is an argument that you can make. What about the children, right? Exactly. It's because of the children that we want to prioritize school funding. We want the money to go where it belongs, and we want people, we're not against public education, we're for the public having a choice in their education, and parents to take back that right to choose the best education for their kids, right? This is what we're for. But understand you're not going to change the mind on the first time. It's the 101st blow that makes the difference. But you're planting a seed on Facebook, on Twitter. Every time you put a conservative article, you're planting a seed. And so the next time they hear about that candidate or that issue, it's gonna mean something to them and make a difference. So my challenge to you is to pull out your phones. Some of you guys are already doing it. I'm sure you're already finding me on Twitter, Amy Clark TX, thank you. But I want you to hashtag do something for me. I'm launching today the Do Something initiative, all right? And what it is, Republicans serve. We are the most charitable, we are the most servant leaders that there are. But we don't talk about it enough. So what I would like to do is start with you guys, because you aren't gonna say you're too busy, and you're not gonna say it can't be done. But I encourage you, when you go out into the community and you serve in projects and in precincts, that we tweet about it, that we get the word out there, to inspire other groups to do the same, right? To let the state know, to let the world know what we're doing as Republicans. We have to move beyond the words. Yes, we talk, and we talk about our principles and we don't stop. But we also have to roll up our sleeves and get our hands dirty and serve in our communities. When we show up every 2 years and ask people for their vote, that's not enough. Precinct by precinct, we're going to take the state back. I've already read, but we're going to take the ideals back, especially from our generation. Y'all, we are an extraordinary generation. I believe our generation will end abortion. Our generation will secure the border. Our generation will preserve this Constitution. I've got 2 kids at home, and they're counting on it. So I encourage you to hashtag do something, and we'll talk more about that later. But I wanted to open it up. If you had any questions, I have a minute and a half, about the Platform Process Review Committee, which is something that I am sharing as vice chairman of the party, that our new chairman, Mike Curtis, has got. It is addressing the structure and the process by which the platform is adopted. It is not addressing the content. That belongs to the hands of the people at the convention. But we are soliciting input, and our email is platformreview@texasgop.com, and I would love to get that. We'll be sending a survey out. Do I have time for a question about it? Or?
Yeah, I'll do one question.
Okay.
So I was the chair of our resolutions committee at our last 2-hour convention, and nobody submitted any resolutions, so we took the idea of taking the party platform and condensing it down to a shorter document, and we were able to pass a 2-page platform that still had all the red meat in it, all the major issues for the Republican Party, but it didn't get bogged down in 40 pages, 270 planks, sometimes contradicting statements. And is that an opportunity for the model for what your committee is trying to do?
So we absolutely send us that, and we'll look at it. And eventually our task is to make a recommendation to the Rules Committee, to then make a recommendation to the Platform Committee in 2016. But the genesis of the effort was the complaint over and over and over that our platform is too long. We love what we stand for. We're not backing away from our principles, but we need to state them, we need to articulate them in a way that people can embrace them and understand that our candidates will be proud and love, that our people can take about. When you go to somebody with a 42-page document and it's not as powerful as it could be. Some of the ideas that have been tossed out are to distill it to a statement of principles, also to have a page of legislative priorities. That's been another, kind of like y'all just passed, that's been another thing that's come up. Some people have asked for there to be an index of platform planks. So again, we're going to address the structure and make a recommendation on that, and the process by which it's passed at the convention, that it would be more efficient. We are not going to address content, because again, that belongs in the hands of people. But if we, as a committee, vote to take it to 20 planks, then that will be the recommendation we put forward, or whatever it may be. But we're early on in that process, and I really do encourage you to provide us input. You can tweet or email me about it, or it's platformreview@texasgop.com. We will be sending around a survey and hoping to do some town hall meetings to get more of a discussion about this, so people's voices can be heard. It's an important, very important issue as we move forward.